am bumbling about, and I am having so much fun doing it. It's the first time, actually, that I haven't been in a rush to be somewhere, and I've actually had the time to meander. And the fun thing is, I keep taking roads, and I have no idea where I'm going to end up. They just take me in a direction, and I've got a guess, but I don't actually completely know. And I've really enjoyed that. Oh, I got overly excited there. I thought that might have been a predator skull. Not that a herbivore skull is not exciting, but it's definitely not a predator skull. It's just had its nose chewed off. I thought for 1 second out of the corner of my eye that that thing over there in the grass was a lion skull. In my defense, I did look quite quickly at it. Definitely not, though. I would say zebra. Maybe buffalo. Now, Holly, you say, are the predators so cleverly hidden we never see them? I assume that you mean the smaller predators, or perhaps things like leopards or cheetah. The lions are pretty obvious. The lions have been relatively easy to spot as we've been going along. The cheetah, at the moment, the grass is so long that it is very difficult to spot them. And of course, you have to get lucky. You have to have one standing on a termite mound or something like that, or perhaps be alerted to its presence by the call of an impala, for example. The serval, they're around. The caracal, they're around. The leopards, I just drove down a road that took me right next to the Mara River. It was utterly stunning. Massive jackalberry trees, different species of jackalberry, but a massive jackalberry trees all along the line. And I wanted to just drive in there, but I absolutely couldn't. I'm sure that's where the leopards are hiding. If I were a leopard, that is where I would be. And then the hyenas. Actually, as we've been driving along, I haven't seen any recently, but the hyenas are around. They're all sleeping in funny little mud wallows hidden in the grass. There's something. There's a predator that's sitting on top of a termite mound. Not the predator we were talking about, but a predator nevertheless. And if you are an insect, a truly terrifying force to be reckoned with. Can you see it there, Manu? Just on the top of the termite mound. There we go. Some more banded mongoose, which I always find exciting. Just the novelty of seeing them regularly still hasn't worn off. About triple the size of the dwarf mongoose that we see on Djuma or in the Sabi sand. Is this your little burrow for the evening, or have you not yet settled down? All gathered up and around about a termite mound. I wonder if they'll let us get closer. Some of them are very relaxed and some of them are not. Perhaps they've got babies in there, you never know. They seem to be looking for something in there. Maybe looking at it as a potential for a den site? Maybe just looking for something to snack on? Maybe just curiosity. Off they go down the other side. Let's try and get closer. I'm not sure that they're going to let me, but let's try. Obviously, just in the same way as in the Sabi sand, there are certain ones that are very relaxed and certain ones that aren't. They're all watching me from the top of the termite mound again. Okay, they're all ducking in, but let's see if we sit here patiently. They'll probably, just like dwarf mongoose, they'll probably pop out. There we go. One hasn't ducked away. Hello. Yes, we see you. We've spotted you. What have you got to say for yourselves? Do you think that head bob is saying hello? I don't think so. It's cute. Strawhead, no, I don't think that's true. I could be mistaken. Perhaps there are certain species of mongoose that do that. Now, Strawhead's wondering if it's true that mongoose will feed their sick and injured members. Let me be careful what I say here, because never say never in the animal kingdom, and perhaps there have been 1 or 2 recorded cases of mongoose feeding their sick and their injured. I would find that quite unlikely. They're certainly very sociable creatures, and the troops or the businesses that they live in are very, very important to species like dwarf mongoose or banded mongoose. I personally have never heard of them doing that, and I would find it quite unlikely. They certainly are very good at looking after the young ones. That's absolutely the case. The whole group will actually be devoted to babysitting little ones. Maybe it's possible. I've never heard of it, but perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps it's something that has been recorded. Perhaps filmmakers or documentary makers or researchers have observed it. I certainly haven't heard of it happening, but I could be mistaken. Wild dogs certainly have been recorded to do that. So I guess it's possible. I don't know. I would be surprised if that is something that happens regularly. Maybe it was a once-off situation, but I can't see them regularly bringing back food to older or infirm members of the group. I don't know. Perhaps some of the other guides have something to say on that matter. Maybe they have seen that. I don't think so. I've just done a loop around away from the lions just to go and explore a little bit, but I'm going to make my way back there slowly but surely. As it starts to get a bit cooler, hopefully they will decide to pop their heads up. You've got me very curious about this whole mongoose feeding the infirm, because presumably that rumor must have, or not rumor, presumably that somebody's spoken about it before, so it makes me wonder where it's come from. Spot the sinister buffalo. One of the reasons why, if I were to walk around here, I would not be walking through the long grass. That is for absolute certain. I mean, we're quite high up. Monu's quite high up with his camera pedestal. But these things just pop out of nowhere. I think I would stick to somewhere with an escape route. There we go. We have Laura's question on the subject. Laura, no, we will not be doing bushwalks. One of the reasons is, yes, it is quite dangerous. It would be very, very difficult to walk around here safely. Obviously, there are certain places that you can walk, and there are guides that do lead walks, but no, we will not be doing bushwalks around here. I mean, if I were to go stumbling into that buffalo unexpectedly on a walk, I'd have to try and get somewhere safe, and the safest point that I can see is a shepherd's tree about, I would say, 150 meters away. There it is over there. That would be my nearest safe point. And that's not very close at all. These open grasslands and lots of hidden buffalo and lots of hippopotamus as well, unexpected hippopotamus that are just wallowing in a mud wallow. Right, it seems as though I actually think Scott has beaten me to it. I'm not 100% sure. Let's go and see what he's found ahead of us.
Well, we can all thank VM for this wonderful scene as he spotted this big male lion. It's probably about 800 meters away from us at the moment. It's a very long way off. But he's on the move, and we are going to do our best to get you a little bit closer to him. He's not too far from, I think, where Jamie found those other lion earlier. We did pass her earlier, and she mentioned they were somewhere, I think, off to our right, kind of to the east of us, whereas he's heading south. Let's carry on and see if we can't get you some closer glimpses. As VM zooms out, you get a better idea of how far away he actually is. Now, I'm not sure which road is our best bet, but we're going to try this one. What a bonus, a beautiful big male lion it looks like, and it'll be interesting to see him up close and personal, try and work out who he is and also what he's up to. He seems to have changed direction now and is heading a little bit more to the east, but who knows, maybe the road could also turn direction, which it seems to be doing perfectly for us now. Hello Lucy, you'd like to know if lions will ever hunt elephants, and yes, they certainly do, but it's quite unique for that to happen, and it'll require there to be a very, very large pride of lions for that to happen. So I feel that the elephants in the background that you saw have got absolutely nothing to worry about. Oh, look at that beautiful scene. The clouds on the right of your screen are actually raining on top of the final control room as it speaks, and you can see that very, very clear divide of where the rain starts and stops. And there's the lion, also heading towards FC, but it's going to take a while to get there, so I don't think anyone there has anything to worry about. Okay, we need to reassess our game plan here. I'm wondering if we shouldn't maybe just continue on this road and see if there's not another one that takes us in an easterly direction, which will allow us to intercept him. There's quite a big kind of swampy marsh of green ahead of us. And what I'm hoping is that there's a road that's been built that runs along the side of it. Time will tell. Hello to Carter, just 14 years of age, and great to have you with us. You're wondering how big will a male lion's territory's range be? And Carter, it really does depend on the individual male and whether or not he's decided to form a gang or a coalition with other males, because that quite often actually happens, that male lion will join together with their brothers when they get kicked out of the pride when they're young, about 2 or 3 years of age. And then they'll head off together and try and work as a team to chase off other male lions and create a territory of their own. And in this area, I think where there's quite a high density of lions, you know, a rough size would be 15 to 25 miles one way by 15 to 25 miles in another way. So a big square about 15 to 25 miles in size would be the average size of a male lion's territory, but it does fluctuate greatly on the area. Okay, I can see another car exactly where we need to be, which means there is a road to get there. We just need to find out which one, and I think it is back in the direction we came. It'll probably take us about 5 or so minutes to get there. So what we might want to do is link to Brent, who's busy looking at the rain.
Brent is not looking at the rain. Well, he probably is, but he's not looking at it from the same perspective as I am. As you can see, it's raining. Yes. And I went outside just to check that the pitter-patter on the roof was in fact water, and indeed it would seem to be so. Anyway, you can see that out here, well, there's still patches of sun, and there are, well, isolated showers going down onto the Mara floor, but the rain's come over there from, what direction would that be? Pretty much from the west. And it's just raining on the escarpment at the moment. There we are, looking out of our little window, which will one day hopefully be replaced with one that does not have cracks in it. Good. Okay, now we've got a number of questions which I would like to answer. I'm just going to flick to them. Flickety, flickety, floop, floop. Did I really say that? Senza? Did I say flickety, flickety, floop, floop? That's embarrassing. Okay. Must be the cold on the top of my bald head. Now, Genevieve in New York, you want to know about dietary requirements of animals here and if they have slightly different dietary requirements from the ones at home. In other words, do they eat differently? They don't. Or, well, let me take that back. They have the same nutritional requirements, but because the soil is so very different here, it will require them to eat in a different way sometimes. So one of the major nutrients, in fact, that is found down here, one of the reasons that it's possible for these animals to breed in such huge profusion around here, about 500,000 young wildebeestes are born on the short grass plains every year, apparently very poor in calcium. Most of Africa's soils are poor in calcium, but very rich in phosphorus. And that phosphorus there allows for an enormous amount of milk production. Apparently phosphorus is hugely important for milk production. So the amount of phosphorus there plays a huge role in allowing the wildebeest herd to birth that many youngsters and feed them until they're either knocked off by tramples or predators or whatever else knocks them off. 1 in 6 apparently, in some books, will tell you only 1 in 6 make it back here on their first migration route. So, you know, the nutrient requirements are the same, their methods of eating, the way they move around will be different in order to get those nutrient requirements, if you know what I mean. So, you know, the wildebeest in the Kruger or in Djuma are totally sedentary. There aren't as many of them because they face greater competition from things like impala and zebra. But here, where they can move, they're not dependent on water. They can move, of course, from water source to water source. They can exist in greater numbers because, well, there aren't that many other animals able to compete with them in this particular ecosystem. So I hope that answers your question. Now, we've got a lot of other questions to get through, which we will do once we have got to Jamie and her male lion.
A male lion that, believe it or not, has moved, and obviously is the same coalition member as the one that Scott's just had, because there goes Scott, he's racing off in the distance, following behind where that male lion was last seen, disappearing off. There he goes over there, he's just come past us. So the big male lion walked along there, big dark-maned male lion, and this guy hasn't stirred at all, which makes me think that they definitely know each other. They're probably they're most likely part of the same coalition. So hopefully Scott can get a good view of that lion, and hopefully at some point this chap gets up so that we can see him a little better as well. I imagine that the weather down here is far nicer than it is up in James's tower, because when I look up at where James is, which is up there at the sort of the curve of the mountain, there we go. That's where James is. That is where final control is, that's where James is, and apparently he's soaking wet. I thought he was inside. What was he doing outside then? There we go, and Angama Mara on the left. Ah. He went to go and close his tent, apparently, and got soaking wet. I think we've dodged that rain completely, Manu. I don't think it's going to come this way at all. Oh, there's the lion. Scott's on his way. There it is, it just popped out in front of us. Oh, he is magnificent. What an amazing looking lion. I can't wait till Scott's there. You're going to have some amazing, amazing views. We'll stick with our lion, though. That's Scotty's lion. We'll stick with our lion. Which brings us to Carter's question. Carter is 13 years old and would like to know, why does the lion lie on his back? A couple of reasons. One, I think it is just something that he finds quite comfortable. Another reason, apparently, is because especially on hot days when they're lying out in the open like this with not too much shade, the pale color of the belly actually reflects more light than a dark color might. So, you know, just in the same way that white reflects heat and black absorbs it. So by putting his lightest part of his body up to the sky, it actually helps to keep him cool. So that's one of the reasons, Carter. I think he just likes it, though. All lions lie like this at some point, and I think they find it quite comfortable. He could not look more unconcerned with life. I can't wait till we get a proper grasp on the different lions around here, that we can know who's who. There we go, a question from Roshni. Speaking of things we are still wrapping our minds around, Roshni, you want to know if this particular male, or that male, is from the Musketeer Coalition, and how many lions are in that coalition. Not from the Musketeer Coalition. The Musketeers are a little bit further to the south. Musketeers, of course, including Scar, or Scarface. He's known as by different names by different people. Scarface, Morani, Hunter, and Sikio, the 4 male lions of the Musketeers. Within this coalition, as we spoke about earlier, there's 3 that have names and a 4th one that's a bit mysterious. And the 3 that have names are Blondie, Half-Tail, Fang, and then obviously the 4th member, who's a bit more confusing. I'm not quite sure who we have here. I'm honestly not 100% sure. Something we're still grasping. The lioness has got her head up, though. Let's just reposition so I can get some pictures. David, yes, male lions in a coalition do greet each other in a cuddly way, in the way that male lions do. They absolutely do. And in fact, I've seen male lions being almost even more affectionate, if you can imagine it, than lionesses are to each other. They're very cuddly creatures to members of the same coalition. They are not very cuddly creatures when it comes to members of not the same coalition. I'm going to get some photos so that we can start to ID these lions. While we do, let's go to Brent, who's got some ostriches in the sand.
Well, it looks like that one female ostrich is having the best dust bath. Oh, join another one now. Now, there's various different reasons why animals and birds will do it. And sometimes it helps get rid of some of the parasites, but I think if you look at them, it looks like it's really enjoyable and good fun. Probably feels quite good as well if you've got any itches. Just scrape it along the ground. Ostriches love a good dust bath. Look at her getting her neck, scratching the bottom of her neck. Kathleen is wondering, can ostriches fly? No, Kathleen, unfortunately not. They're too heavy. They are definitely a ground-based bird. They're capable of incredible speed, and that's how they get away from predators. But they cannot fly. Oh, look at that one gawking, that female in the road there. Now, one of the things ostriches do, which, well, I suppose is not strange if you're an ostrich, is that they swallow stones to aid in their digestion. So they will swallow little bits of stone, and they're also very, very good at going after little bits of shiny stuff. So I left my fishing box open once on the farm, and I came back and the ostrich was trying to eat all the hooks. Of course, not very good for an ostrich, hooks, but they seem to have a constitution of iron. So they will eat quite a lot of little rocks, quartz. They seem to be attracted to the shinier rocks. Now, there's an old tale from Namibia, and if you want to find, and it was also perpetrated by a South African comedian who made a movie about it. But it is true that in the past, diamonds have been found in ostrich droppings. They tend to like to eat shiny things. Now, that stone helps them in their gullet, in their stomach, and helps grind up what they're eating. You might hear a little patter of rain on our roof. Now, Laurie is wondering, would an ostrich kick a predator if they were threatened? Laurie, Absolutely, most definitely, that is their main form of defense. And I was just talking about the ostriches on our family farm, and very good friends of ours had the farm next door, and one of my parents' best friends, he actually got kicked by a male ostrich, and in breeding plumage they can be very aggressive. I've been chased up trees by them. I've spent 2.5 hours setting up a tree with a fishing rod waiting for an angry male ostrich to go away. It was not pleasant. So they will definitely kick, and they have got an incredibly sharp claw, or talon, I suppose, not really a claw. And on Jimmy, who was our neighbor, he had, I think, over 80 stitches in his leg from a single kick from a male ostrich. So they definitely would kick a predator to defend themselves. But first and foremost, they'll rely on their incredible speed. You can probably get up to around 70 kilometers an hour. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get eaten. Cheetah are quite fond of eating ostrich. Lions will also eat ostrich. So it's not that they don't get eaten, and they definitely do. Ruth is wondering, do ostriches really hide their heads in the sand? Ruth, they do not. I think it's an old wives' tale. There's never been an actual scientific record of an ostrich hiding their head in the sand. I can see where it probably comes. If you look at that ostrich there, it looks like its head's under the sand, but it's not. It's just picking at the ground. So no, they don't hide their heads in the sand. Ooh, he's feeling frisky. So this male has sequestered himself a little harem of females. You can see that reddish tinge to his legs and his neck and his beak, which means he is in breeding plumage. Now, like the impala, ostriches here do not have a set breeding season, so they will breed throughout the year, just like the impala, buffalo, waterbuck. A lot of animals here, because of the high nutrients in the soil and the great grass, will actually breed throughout the year and do not have a set breeding season. Roshni is wondering, she's heard it's true that ostrich eggs are so strong that if a human man were to stand upon them, they would not break. Well, I'd say an average human man, yes. If you got a fatty, I'm sure it would break. But average human, and I think if I remember correctly, that a single ostrich egg is the equivalent to 36 hen's eggs. So a good meal. And I know James has been talking quite a bit about evolution of human beings today, and a very important food source for early man, and often found in middens. Now, middens are what left over from a human encampment or a hominin encampment. Ostrich egg shells were found, so they were eaten by our ancestors. And a very interesting, just because James has been talking about it today in particular, that not so long ago, I read a very interesting article about the evolution of man, and how we might have got it all wrong. So everyone has been arguing that there was a single point where man evolved from in Africa, a single area, whether it be southern or East Africa, depends on who you ask. But they've now found bones, were actually found in the 60s, but they were incorrectly dated. And in Morocco, that puts the age of humans, modern man, about 100,000 years earlier, so now closer to 350,000 years. And it sort of leads more to something I definitely believe in, and makes more sense to me, that rather than a single point of origin for humankind, there was a evolution over the whole. Oh, so James did also talk about this, so I won't go on. So man evolved over the whole of Africa simultaneously rather than a single place. So, and in a lot of sort of early man, particularly in the San culture from southern Africa up into Angola, ostriches are a very important for a source of food in terms of their eggs, but also their eggs are really important storage units, particularly for water. And people would cache ostrich eggs full of water all over the Kalahari Desert and whatnot, so they would have water in time of need. Stop it with a special plant, generally wild sage, to keep it fresh. Now the Khadzeba, which are a very primitive people from not too far from here in Tanzania, also use ostrich eggs, very importantly to store water and other things that they might need. Also for jewelry and decoration, ostrich eggs were very, very popular and are still very popular. Now, I've got a question for all of you. Where in the world are the most ostriches? What country, or actually, what country in the world are the most ostriches? If you know the answer, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Let's see. I think I have told you guys before, but let's see who was listening. And if you can even tell me even more particularly where the most ostriches in the world are, I'll be suitably impressed. Now those ostriches are going to move off. We're going to do the same. We're still looking for leopard. So there's a wonderful little lugger, and I know James explained what a lugger is, that runs up through here. So I'm going to see if we can find a leopard along the lugger. But Jamie's got lions in the meantime.
I am with lions in the meantime, but I'm feeling quite smug and dry while I look across towards our camp. Right, that was a really well-timed ominous rumble of thunder right there. That was the weather's way of telling me that I'm not going to be smug and dry for very long at all, and in fact the weather is on its way towards us. That, of course, is perfect hunting weather for lions like these. They're quite well rested. I feel as though they've had the afternoon to gather their strength, and if it does start to pour down, there's a very good chance that they will get up and go off in search of something to eat. Now, because these lions haven't lifted their heads, I haven't managed to get an ID photo yet. Now, what I'm thinking of doing is going in the direction of Scott's lion, in the hope that he might turn towards us, so I can still see him. And he kind of pulled a sneaky maneuver on Scott and came back towards us. He came in our direction. I'm just wondering if it's not worth perhaps going and having a quick look at him. Maybe we can get him to face us. Not get him to face us. Maybe he will face us and we can get a photograph of his beautiful face. Hey, mister, won't you go and call your coalition member over here? I would really appreciate it. No. He is the king of beasts, and not to be plagued with requests. Manu, can we go over onto those birds on the dead tree, please? A little bit to the left. I think they might... no, sorry, you were on the right tree. I just meant a little bit to the left of the tree. There we go. There's some mouse birds for you, and here's the coolest thing about the mouse birds here, the speckled mouse birds. They have white cheeks. Look at that. These cute little patches of white on their cheeks. I find that adorable because I've grew up with mouse birds in my home, and of course many of you know the story of the mouse bird that I raised as a small child and then died on me, or at least it died, and then I never raised another baby bird ever again. But these little speckled mouse birds with their white cheeks are so sweet. Right. Okay, they're sort of ducking and diving in the tree, and it's quite difficult because they're silhouetted against the sun. So let's go back to our lions so that we can answer Sarah's question. Sarah, not here. So Sarah's wondering if there's any problems with lions being poached in Kenya or poisoned. There is a possibility of lions being poisoned, yes. And lions do get killed, not so much due to poaching, but especially where they wander into areas where they come into conflict with human beings, and particularly where they come into conflict with agricultural areas, so where they start to essentially feed off people's livelihoods when they go and they hunt cows. And then they do get killed, yes. It is a possibility. It is something that does happen. And one of those things that the inevitable impact that we have on wildlife is we restrict them into smaller and smaller areas. Even though the Masai Mara is absolutely massive, it's impossible for lions to spread beyond its boundaries without coming into conflict with humans. And then, yes, they could die. They could, and I don't know that I would call that poaching. It's not that they're being sold for body parts or anything like that. It's something else entirely. It's a conflict with surrounding human beings. So that does happen, just as it happens anywhere throughout Africa. Okay, let's move on to happier things. Let's go see that lion up ahead. And perhaps we've got a view of him. While I do that, let's go across to another species that is protected out here with Brent.
And we are with some lovely Ellie bulls. Right, in some greenery, and right where a little lugger flows out, so lots of lovely grass and sedges for them to munch upon. A little group, there's 4 of them. There we go, the third one's in there. There we go, that's the 4th one. Third one in the thickets just behind. Ah, there we go, now Dave sees them. That's a zebra, Dave. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we've got zebra here as well. So, not particularly big or old boys. But they are beautiful. Indeed. Well done to Shamrock, who got the ostrich quiz correct. Indeed, it is the USA. They are farmed in Texas for their very lean, healthy meat. Now we got some elephant and topi. And it always pays to just take your time in these areas. You never know what might pop out. As I said, my plan is to move up the lugger, but there's just so much going on here. I just could not resist. There's an impala atop a termite mound in the distance to the left of it. About there, I think. There it is. Keeping a watchful eye, making sure the spotted cats we're looking for don't sneak up upon it. And then we've got one of my favourite little antelopes in the world just to the left. I find them absolutely gorgeous. The Thompson's gazelle. Little tom-toms. Now, I know a lot of you would have known where the Thompson's gazelle get their name from, but for those of you who don't, I will let you know quickly. The Thompson's gazelle is named after, I think it was Robert Thompson. He was an explorer of the Victorian era, and he was not as famous as some of the others, but he is most famous for being one of the only explorers who didn't have problems with the local tribes, and managed, or with his porters, he managed to very peacefully travel through East Africa. And he's most famously quoted for saying, those who travel quietly travel safely. Those who travel safely travel far. So, okay, well, while we let that little Thompson's gazelle tail wag away, let's fly across to Scott with a feathered friend.
Well, VM's done another good job in finding us this little predator. There's some Burchell starlings that are mobbing it. And that's what caught VM's attention. It doesn't seem too concerned. And it appears like the birds that were mobbing it have just flown out the tree. Now the problem is I'm just looking at it in the monitor. And I can't, if you don't mind zooming out a bit, VM, just to give me a bit of perspective. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Thank you. It's a tiny, tiny little bird of prey. Almost a similar size to the Burchell starlings that were mobbing it. And I'm afraid I'm not sure who it is. So, we're going to have to get the book out and start doing some investigations. It definitely looks like a little goshawk or a kestrel. It just seems a bit too small to be an African goshawk. Okay, James has thrown in there that it could be a sparrowhawk, and I think that is also a good call from Mr. Henry. Jeez, it is a tricky one. It's certainly... Oh, has it gone? Ah, there we go. It's popped out again. I'm busy looking in the book. Well, I am stumped. And am battling to even take a guess. There it goes. Well done, Vim. A great job following it off. So, why don't you guys have a look here in the book. And James thankfully noticed that it had a white bar above its tail when it took off, which is a very useful indicator. Now, all of these goshawks, look quite similar to that one we were looking at now. Very, very barred chest, but if VM keeps going down, you'll notice that all of them are fairly similar. So it's a tricky one. I'm going to page over here to the goshawks now. You see, a little sparrowhawk just doesn't seem to have the right colorations. But a lot of these birds do have slightly different morphs or colors. This one seems to have more reddish orange legs and cere. The cere is that little part of the bird where its nostrils are. So that's the cere, and they often are a similar color to their legs. So if the cere is yellow, the legs are often yellow, whereas the bird we just saw now had more of an orange tinge, and most of the birds I can see on this page all seem to have more yellowish tinges. What it sounds like, and I'm very, very grateful to have James in the studio helping, he seems to think it is a little sparrowhawk, and I'm inclined to think the same, basically mainly from its size. It was tiny. It was probably only 4 or 5 inches tall, maybe 6. So for now, I think we will go with little sparrowhawk. If any of you have got any more ideas or thoughts as to who you think it might be, please let us know, and also let us know why. Whether it was the leg color or something specific that you noticed. And they all look quite similar to one another. Again, it could be, or could have been. What would have been great is if some of you guys got some screenshots, and then you can really compare against the different bird books and the different descriptions of them. But I think a shikra is certainly not a bad guess. And thanks very much to all of you who are sending in screenshots. That is going to be a very, very useful tool with getting to the bottom of this current mystery. It seems like we very narrowly missed the rain. It stopped just in front of us. A vehicle drove past us soaking, but we have thankfully remained dry. Hello to Pre-Dawn, and thank you for sending through your guess as well as a reason why. Now, you've suggested that it was an African goshawk because the barring went all the way up to the base of its throat or its beak. So that could be the case. I also actually thought it was one initially, but then the size threw me off. So, who knows? Could have been. And I'm gonna leave this one for James to decipher, because he's going to have the aid of the screenshots. Hello everyone. Alright, well, it sounds like James has got a little bit distracted and he's stopped trying to identify the bird, but I do not blame him because he has found something beautiful.
I've been distracted by thousands of things this afternoon, but that rainbow is chief among them. That is a magnificent rainbow. We had one yesterday as well over the top of the camp, and I just think that that is too spectacular for words. Now, regarding the bird, I mean, Scott showed you all the best pictures, I think, that he had in his book there, and most of those, I think, indicate, I mean, I would agree with everything he said. The only thing that I have the advantage of is that I've got a great big screen here that I could see it on. So the detail that I saw it in is much greater than the detail that he saw it in. I have to agree with him, though. It had the wrong colour cere, wrong colour feet for a little sparrow hawk, but perhaps it was a young one, an immature one, and hadn't quite got to its yellow coloured feet. I don't know. Could have been. Fascinating stuff anyway. Good. Now, we had some more questions. Sorry, there was a fly there. Alright, Tormented Zombie, you want to know about a 24-hour camera like the Djuma Dam cam. We are going to have cameras at the crossings. So if you come over here, I've done this to you again, Senzo. Sorry about that. We'll just give them a time to slowly and smoothly change the angle, and you'll lift up here. We are going to be putting cameras over here. The cul-de-sac crossing, the main crossing, I think the dusty crossing, the picnic, no, not the picnic crossing. So there'll be 5 cameras, perhaps a camera down here. There will be 5 live cameras at the crossings. Now those will be live all the time. To us, I'm not sure if we're going to stream any or all of them live, but they will be there. But the reason they're going to be live to us here is so that we can come to you or go onto Facebook and do a live broadcast as soon as any action happens. So that's what's going to happen with all of the cameras that side. Then, what else have we got here? Gloria what? Oh yes, Gloria. You said the roads in the Masai Mara have names like they do in South Africa. You know they don't have as names as well defined as they do in South Africa. And Gloria, the reason for this, of course, is that the area is so vast. Now, most of the areas that we traverse in South Africa are different because they are smaller and traversed by a greater density of people and private landowners and that sort of thing. So that's why in South Africa we'd have a name for every little track. Here, yes, some of them have roads. A lot of them are in fact district roads. They're public roads and they're maintained by the government. And you will notice, I mean, you've seen the roads, some of the big roads that we drive on look like kind of major dirt highways, which they aren't, but they take a lot of traffic, and so we have to look after that. They don't have a huge number of roads. Some of them have got names, some of them don't. Some of them are just sort of tracks. So, I mean, for example, when I went down to that leopard last week sometime, it was down towards, it was called Second Salt Licks. It was somewhere around here. And this road has become known now as Salt Lick Road, but it isn't in fact. I think it was because the 2 salt licks were put there, possibly during a drought of some sort. Okay, good. Let's head back to Jamie and her lions. I'm going to continue to enjoy this magnificent view of the rainbow.
I hope that it is a truly lovely rainbow, James. I've been trying to see whether or not we can see a rainbow from where we are. We can't. We can just see the storm blowing past, having completely, neatly dodged it. I'm quite impressed, actually. It's going to make the drive up the muddy road up the hill quite entertaining on our way home. But otherwise, I think we've done quite well. Escaped the storm unscathed. The lions have, as you can see, been hugely active since you last left us. They're doing what lions do. Lions like to sleep. It is part of their nature. They expend huge amounts of energy when they do actually hunt and when they do move about. They spend a lot of time recovering. Now, if this is the Olololo Pride, and I haven't had a chance to confirm this, obviously, but if this is, then in theory, they actually have cubs as well. 3 cubs, to be precise, possibly more. There we go. Pause. You were wondering about whether or not they have cubs. To the best of my knowledge, and again, all of this knowledge that I'm imparting to you is actually second-hand, essentially, because it's just information gleaned from the various guides. But if we are correct about this being the Olololo pride, then they, in theory, have 3 cubs, possibly more, because I think that the denning lioness might... I think one of these lionesses is denning. Let's put it that way. It remains to be, the mystery remains to be unfolded. These are the sorts of answers that we're going to find out over the coming days and weeks and months as we get to know these lions better. And they're going to stick around here, so we really are going to spend a great deal of time with them. I said I was going to go and try and have a look at that second male. I did try to do that, but he is very far away, even from our side. There's a big river system that runs between where we are and where he is, and he is actually almost invisible. So I decided we'd stick with these lions for now, and wait for them to get up. The lionesses could not be any flatter if they tried, but I think it's safe to say there's only 3 of them, which would make the correct number for the Olololos. And as I said, the 2 prides are related to each other, apparently. Apparently they're both breakaway prides. They are related. Which again, makes sense in terms of their proximity. Because the Angamas are not far away from where we are now. Probably about 2 kilometers, as the crow flies. Now, Roshni, you would like to know about some of the challenges that we face driving in the Mara. Well, there's a challenge straight away, is actually been telling you about the various animal characters, or at least attempting to fill you in without... no, let me try and phrase this. It's been a challenge in itself, is because there's different names. Different lodges use different names for the same pride. There's differing information, so sifting through that and giving you the most accurate information has been a challenge. Mud is a challenge. It's been a long time since I've actually actively had to drive in mud. Djuma doesn't really count. There's some really very thick mud around here that we've had to scoot through. Severe weather is the occasional challenge. Lots and lots of rain pouring it down at once, which is all cleared up all of a sudden. Here you go, look at that. The rain has passed and the sun is now shining down upon James. It's been a challenge getting to know the area, I suppose, but a challenge in a good way. Challenge often has a negative connotation, so I don't see it that way at all. It's been fun exploring, but sometimes you think you're getting to an animal, but actually what you're doing is taking a road that leads you somewhere in completely the opposite direction. I'm sure all of the other guides will have different challenges that they feel have been something that they've faced out here. It's very different, but it's been absolutely magical. Not tracking, I guess, is another challenge. Every time you see footprints going off the road and you have to stop yourself from jumping out of the car and trying to follow them. It's another example of a challenge. And so we wait patiently for these lions to please get up before the end of the sunset safari. I would very much appreciate that. Speaking of adventures and exploring, let's go and find out how Brent feels about it.
Well, we found another buffalo. We've come to the end of the Lugger Road, and alas, no leopard. But you can see why we've been driving here, as Dave shows you. These wonderful trees. There's some quinine trees and ebony trees all along here. I was really hoping we might see a tail hanging out of one of them. Now, Jamie was talking about one of the things about the challenges of the Mara and one of its driving in mud. And another one probably is the vast distance you get to cover. So it's a pro and a con. And but I want to focus more on this driving in mud thing, because I think we need to start something here in the Mara. We used to have it at other places I've worked. It is called the Chairman of the Marshmallow Club. Yes, you heard me correctly. The Chairman of the Marshmallow Club. Now that is for the guide, or in our case the presenter, who gets stuck the most often. I think we should have a monthly award. It used to be a pink spade, like a little kid's spade, and a bucket that used to float around the guides who got stuck the most. So what do you think, Dave? I think that's a good idea. So why don't you tell me which out of the 4 presenters we have here in the Mara, Scott, James, Jamie and myself, who is going to be chairman of the Marshmallow Club? Who is going to get stuck the most often? Because out here it's not a matter of if, but when. I'm probably going to put some jinx on me, but I'm saying I definitely am not going to be the first chairman of the Marshmallow Club. I have a suspicion who might be the first chairman of the Marshmallow Club, but shame, I won't say their name out loud. So who do you think? Why don't you tell me who you think will be the first chairman of the Marshmallow Club? I think we'll start it from now. What's the date today? 26. Oh, it's a bit late, so we'll do 4 days. No. Okay, we'll start this month for next month as well. So we'll have it every month, the Marshmallow Club chairman, and we'll have to find a little prize that will go between us, whoever gets stuck the most times that month. Jules thinks James is going to get stuck the most, and Jeremy thinks Jamie. Interesting. Dave, who do you think, or are you going to keep quiet? Dave doesn't want to get involved. Dave, you chicken. I'm also chicken. Why don't we also? Final control, who do you think? Oh, apparently a lot of you think I'm going to get stuck. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Oh, no one thinks Scotty's going to get stuck. Okay. Final control, who do you think will be the chairman of the Marshmallow Club? Ah, Kirsten. Kirsten thinks it's going to be me, but she didn't sound very convincing. It is absolutely gorgeous here at the moment, and you can see there's rain down to the south of us, and that's the same rain that went through across James. We managed to see it coming and head north away from it. And it is quite beautiful, though, the light and the dark skies. Exquisite. Wow, beautiful. Okay, let's keep moving. I would like everyone to know that in all my years, I've never been chairman of the Marshmallow Club. Oh, sorry, this is just rattling a bit there. There we go. Now, where to go to next? Well, everyone seems to think Scott's the least likely to get stuck. Well, only time will tell. Well, let's go have a look if Scotty is avoiding the mud.
Well, you have come to me and I am stationary, but thankfully not stuck. And I'm surprised and humbled by the fact that most of you think Jamie, Brent and James will become stuck before I do. Yet I feel that this may have jinxed me. But I do agree. I think Brent is probably the most likely to get stuck because he simply cannot resist the adventure and sometimes will go anywhere even if he knows if he's going to get stuck, just to try his best to get you into the good positions. Now, I'm wondering, we've just got a glimpse of a lioness behind us. She appeared like she may have been moving in our direction, but then she all of a sudden must have come to a standstill and changed her mind. I'm thinking it is the same lioness, or the mother, of the 3 smaller Angama cubs, which are probably around a month old, I'm guessing. Very small little fur balls. So it may be worth spending a little bit more time here in case she manages to bring those cubs out for us. Oh, good. VM says he can spot her on a termite mound, it sounds like. Oh, a little cub on the termite mound. We're in for a treat. Well spotted, VM. And you can just see a little head poking up on that mound. Oh, and a big head. Isn't this awesome? It seems like Mommy is a little bit irritable and grumpy, and that's from many, many hours of babysitting. And while she babysits them, they are certainly going to be pestering her. Look at how cute that little thing is. They are certainly going to be pestering her for as much milk as they can possibly get. So I'm sure she's actually probably looking forward to darkness closing in, where she will probably leave these guys tucked away in a little thicket and join the other two lioness and see if she can find some food. Oh, it looks like the cubs are practicing their hunting and stalking techniques on one another. Isn't this wonderful? Young cubs, like most young animals, like chewing on just about anything. Branches, their mother's tail, their siblings. And like I said, these cubs are probably in and around a month of age, possibly a few days less or a few days more. Very difficult to be certain unless you're obviously there when it happened. Oh, what's this little cub seen? Is it chasing butterflies or its siblings further below it on the small termite mound that they've decided to be their castle and playground for the afternoon? What can you see, youngster? Now, James apparently managed to get a good enough view this morning to deduce that he at least thinks there's 2 young lioness and 1 young lion. That makes up the 3 little cubs here. Very tricky to tell at this stage, especially if you're just getting fleeting glimpses like we are. No, we need to be ready for action. I'm wondering if Mom's not going to take these youngsters back to the rest of the pride before she drops them, before she finds a spot to drop them off. Oh, she's definitely on the move. And we also need to get on the move in order to get into the right position, because I'm almost certain she's going to head onto this road and in this direction, so this would be a fortunate spot for us to wake. Oh, this is going to be so good. We're going to have them coming straight towards us. And the light should be just right. Oh no, don't lie down yet, Mom. You can just make her out there. Isn't it incredible how well they blend in? I really do love seeing lions in this kind of a scene or a setting. Hello to our Lara, and thank you for sending your question through. You're interested to know if this lioness would find an actual den site where she would tuck them away. And yes, in their initial few weeks of birth, lions will use something like a den site, and they'll go back to it repeatedly and leave the cubs there, because the cubs are completely immobile and blind and fairly helpless. And then from about 2 weeks to a month of age, she'll start kind of depositing them in different spots. So not very elaborate, not as elaborate as a den site. So, you know, it could just be a thick bush as opposed to a small burrow or a cave that they may look for. So that is a good question. They do use den sites, but from this kind of age onwards, they'll just be plonked in the safest possible place nearby to where Mom needs to do the hunting for them that night. Now, unfortunately, Mom has plonked herself down in an area where there's very long grass, but I'm glad we have had a good glimpse of the cubs so far, and I think it is going to be worth investing some patience on the matter here, because I've got a strong feeling she's going to continue towards the rest of the pride, and it'll be wonderful if we get to see them reunite, because that's something. Oh, thanks, VM. VM's multitasking. He's filming and keeping an eye on the lions at the same time. Is she going to pop out into an area where we might be able to see those cubs? Oh, she is plopped down again. And I guess not hugely dissimilar to us in the morning. It takes a while to kind of get into gear, and it seems like she's going through the motions of waking up. And while we let her take her time before her next movements, we're going to send you across to Jamie with some other lions.
The Angamas are up and moving, and the pride of lions that we're with were showing similar signs up until a moment ago. And we've had a few yawns, a few face licks, paw licks, which of course with big cats is always a sign that they're about to get up and moving, which is fantastic news because we're going to have to leave pretty soon in order to get back for the closing of the gate time. Come on, you lot. You up and moving yet? I'm going to have to leave in the next 5 minutes or so, I think, if I'm going to get there in time. No, we should be alright. We should be able to push it for a little bit longer. It's still getting... There you go, there's another challenge. Having talked about challenges here, another challenge is just knowing the distances between points. Now, speaking of this particular group of lions, and if in fact we are correct about their history, Anna, you wanted to know what happens when a breakaway pride comes into contact with their original pride. Most of the time, especially if it's quite early on after the breakaway, most of the time it's a relatively peaceful affair. And in fact, breakaway prides often reunite with their original pride every now and again, and spend a bit of time with them. As time goes on, though, those prides become more and more separate and distinct from each other, until the point that they get to the stage that it's essentially a different pride to their own, and they don't recognize their familial connection, and they'll behave just as if that pride was an ordinary strange pride, behaving in the same way, behaving territorially, warring, potentially fighting. Lion prides do fight. The females do fight with each other occasionally if they find themselves in each other's territories. So it's a matter of time. It's basically a time-based exercise as to when exactly the lions broke away from each other. And most of the time, you'll find that a breakaway pride becomes its own separate pride, its own distinct pride. So far, the two lionesses that I've seen yawn look to be quite old to me. They don't look like young lionesses. Which makes sense, because often breakaway prides are mothers and cubs, and usually along similar sort of generational lines. Hey girl, that was a big stretch, almost a belly crawl along the ground. So she's the one that's looking the most alert and the most active. The others are less enthusiastic about having to cut short their sleep. Another big yawn. The male's head was up a moment ago, but he is back down again. He's definitely in no hurry to go anywhere. Though we still don't know exactly who he is. I can tell you that he has serious bed hair. Oh, there we go. Oh, greeting ceremony between the lionesses, bonding with each other, aloe grooming and scent marking on each other. Just generally being quite cuddly. Wait, come back. Keep licking. Oscar, who is a new viewer. Oscar, welcome. Oscar, you would like to know if lions just sleep like this all day. Oscar, lions do sleep. That is what they do as a species. They sleep for often 20 hours a day. So that is part of their natural behavior. When they are up and when they are active, it's the most extraordinary thing to watch, especially when they're coordinating and hunting together, watching the cubs play with each other. But yes, part of a lion's genetic makeup is geared towards sleeping a lot. Now you're going to hear the click of my camera. Nobody can shout at me because I have to get photos of these lions. So here we go. Interesting. Oopsie. Interesting that. She went and scent tested the male and then phlegm and grimaced. How interesting is that? So phlegm and grimace is essentially a way of testing the scent. A lion's way of tasting the smell. Here we go. Everybody, you can help me as well for IDing these lions by getting lots of screenshots and sending them through on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Could be that she's coming into estrus, you know. Look, he's going to go, let's go back to the male, Manu. He's testing her smell. Now he's going to lift up his face and phlegm and grimace, which is that snarl look. There we go. Looks like he's snarling. He's not snarling. What he's doing is opening up an organ on the roof of his mouth that will allow him to taste the smell. And essentially to analyze every little bit of it. And now the sun's come out so beautifully. Isn't this amazing? It is beautiful. Now, HA, you want to know, or Ha, however you choose to say it, you want to know what the difference is between a breakaway pride and a sister pride is. I would say they're pretty much the same thing, to be completely honest with you. I don't think there's much of a distinction. They might, I guess you could say they might have arisen through different means. A lot of the time a breakaway pride comes when there's been a territorial takeover by males. And the reason behind that, of course, is that new males will come in and they will kill cubs. So what will often happen is mothers of young cubs will try and get away from that takeover. And they'll move away with their young cubs whilst the rest of the pride will stay put and get to know the new males and essentially accept the new males. And for that reason, the breakaway prides actually, that's probably one of the most common causes of a breakaway pride. Sometimes it could also just be the size of a lion pride. It might not be sustainable. You know, 40 lions, 50 lions, well, 40 lions is a lot of mouths to feed. Oh boy, I nearly got a perfect whisker spot pattern shot of you. I hope all of you are going to help me out on this, Manu. If we can move in close to his face, what we're looking for is screenshots of his whisker spot pattern. That, of course, is one of the most identifying points of a lion. Each and every single lion has a unique whisker spot pattern. And then we're looking for scars, tears in the ear, rips in the ear, anything like that. Anything that's obvious, something that stands out. The color of his mane, the amount of mane growth, but of course that's going to change throughout his life. All of those are points that we're trying to look at. So he doesn't seem to have any immediately apparent scars. He definitely doesn't have a short tail, so it's definitely not half tail. Ah, perfect, perfect, perfect. Look at me, boy. Please look at me. Thank you. Awesome. All of those will be hugely helpful to us when we're trying to keep track of the different lions and as we try to get to know the different lions. Ah, Jay. Jay's been observant. Jay says that he guesses that this is Fang because he's missing the right bottom canine. Yep, that would be Fang. That would make sense in this area. I'm almost certain that you are correct. So, I think there's a good chance that we have Fang here. Awesome. It's got a mouthful of dust. Right, well, things have changed dramatically for Mr. Henry. He's gone from blue skies to drenching rain to rainbows and now sun once again.
We have indeed gone to completely beautiful blue skies over the Mara. The sun is about to go down behind us. Now, we've had a couple of questions. Rain appropriately wanted to know about rain. Rain, you're 16 years old and you say, is there a rainy season here? And the answer is absolutely there's a rainy season. There are 2 rainy seasons. But otherwise the climate is fairly consistent. We're pretty much on the equator. I forget exactly where the equator runs, actually. I'll find out for you. That's really poor. I used to know. Anyway, it runs very close to where we are, so the climate is pretty consistent all year round. There are 2 rainy seasons, the long rains and the short rains. The long rains can run anywhere sort of between April, May and June. We're receiving the end of the long rains now, so we're going into a drier period. And then the short rains, which occur any time sort of between October, November, sometimes into December, and there'll be a little bit less rain during those times. So yes, this whole area here receives that. Now the reason I'm standing here is that we had a question about whether or not we get lakes in the area. No lakes in this particular region here, but of course the world's 3rd largest lake, Lake Victoria, is over there, and if Senzor just stands right where he is and does not move, well, I will just tell you exactly how big it is. It is 82,000 square kilometers, or about 37,000 square miles. That's Lake Victoria up there, and it extends all the way down to where I'm pointing here. So it's roughly this big. It's enormous. 3rd biggest lake in the world. There's an entire industry that goes on around it, and it of course covers the borders of not only Kenya and Tanzania, which we have there, but also Uganda up around that side there. So a vast, vast lake. Now that was from Take Care, so thank you very much for the Take Care. The Tormented Zombie Owl, I keep seeing your name, and I think you had a question as well. And you wanted to know if we're going to ever use a drone here. No, we're not going to use a drone here. Drones are not allowed in Kenya at all, unless you remember the military. And last time I checked, we are not members of the military. But we do have the hot air balloon. And if you joined us on the morning safari, you'll see shots from the air, from the hot air balloon, and that's great fun. I'm going on the hot air balloon tomorrow morning, which I'm very excited about, but I'm afraid there will not be any feed from the Mara tomorrow. We are preparing to go into nighttime rehearsals, which are tomorrow night, and then we're doing a big rehearsal on the Wednesday morning, so we'll be up all night tomorrow night. Let's head across to Scott and find out how excited he is about the lack of melatonin his body is going to be producing tomorrow.
I am very, very excited about tomorrow night. I cannot wait. Graham's busy, was kind of planning the attack for tomorrow night, and he's already planned the area that he'd like me to go and explore. Quite a lot further east of where we are, an area called Paradise Plains, which sounds like quite a nice area to go and explore. And, you know, the joy of being able to spend the night out in a place like this is a huge, huge privilege that I cannot wait to start making the most of. So, the vehicles up ahead of us over there is where we left the lioness and cubs that you saw shortly ago, a short time ago rather, and what we thought we'd do is just go back and see what the rest of the pride that we saw earlier were up to. And when we got there, there was no one there. And it was quite tricky to work out where they've gone because the road's been completely washed clean from the rain. So we thought maybe we'll just come back here. Maybe they were on their way to her, or maybe they've just moved off a short distance and flopped down in the long grass and we simply can't see them. So what we'll do is we'll come back and see if the mother and the cute little furballs haven't decided to come back out. They dropped down into quite a steep ravine to the right of the road here, so I'm not too confident, but maybe we'll get lucky. Well, there's no real clear sign of it here. So in the meantime, what I'll do is answer a question from Roshni, who would like to know if Lioness will ever share the responsibility for nursing cubs. Now, the answer to that is no, as a general rule, but there are always exceptions to the rule in the animal kingdom, as well as ours. I guess we are animals, we just sometimes forget that we might be. And yes, you know, in certain freak situations where cubs have lost their mothers, in certain scenarios other lionesses have adopted them. So it can happen, but ordinarily each mother will be protecting her milk reserves so that she can look after her personal cubs to the best of her ability. So I think sharing of nursing between lionesses is quite uncommon. We've got some new fans in the vehicle in front of us. We've just told them all about Safari Live. And it's so great to be out here showing you guys a good time, but also spreading the word to those who are here on actual safari. Bye-bye. Okay, so we're going to keep heading on and see if we can't work out where the rest of the pride has gone. And while we do that, we are going to send you back to Jamie with that big male.
Hopefully Scotty has some luck in terms of relocating the Angama pride, but you're back again to help me with sending through all of your screenshots of our magnificent male. Definitely Fang. Must be, with his missing a tooth. Now earlier on, he did what all male lions do accidentally at some point or another, which is upset the females. One of the females got up and went to scent test the urine left by the first lioness, and he came to join in the whole party in the hope that he was going to, I think, get some action, and all he got in return was a smack in the face and a growl. And he jumped back with that confused expression on his face as if to say, "What did I do this time?" Shame, boy. He is gorgeous, though, and this light is really providing us with the most exquisite imagery. Now, we really are going to have to leave shortly. In fact, I should have left 5 minutes ago, but I've just been prolonging it for one last view of our lion in the sun, but then we really must go, or we are going to be frightfully, frightfully late for the gate, which would be, well, not ideal. Now, I just wanted to give you one last view. The Olololo lionesses, I think the Olololo lionesses, it's quite a mouthful to say, isn't it? I think it's them. They were up and about, but they are going back to sleep, and unfortunately I cannot delay my departure any further. One last look. Our beautiful snoozy lion. And then it's time to go. I'm going to have to navigate my way out of around several vehicles. So while we do that and I start the race home, I'm sure that Brent Leo Smith is already well on his way. Let's go and see what he's found on the journey home.
Well, we've got an absolute massive general game. I just want to get a little bit higher up and we can show you. I think we've got eland, zebra, wildebeest, hartebeest, topie, and it is absolutely gorgeous with the dark sky behind, so I'm just going to get up a little bit higher. It's a lovely big herd of eland by the looks coming in there. And one of my favorite antelopes, the eland. And you can see this is in the zone that got very wet below camp. Okay, there we go, we're nearly at the eland. Now, very, very interesting, eland and human beings. Now, of all the different animals, animals have different flight zones, depending on what predator is after them. And this is, of course, evolved with the evolution of different animals, different predators, and different people. And people as well. So, eland have the longest flight zone when it comes to human beings on foot. Now, when I talk about a flight zone, when an impala sees a human being walking towards it, they'll run away, and they'll generally stop at a certain distance to turn around and look. And scientists have studied that. Oh, she's got very wide horns. And on average, different animals have different averages of distance they run away. Now, eland have the longest distance that they run from a human being, up to about 600 meters, normally around 500 meters. So most animals will run 50, 100 meters, turn around, look to make sure that there still isn't a threat. Now, eland, specifically with human beings, have evolved to have a much longer flight distance. Now, that is because it is possible for a human being to run down an eland. So they are very bulky, and they can't run very fast. So it is possible for a human being to tire out an eland by continuously running on it to hunt it. So to counteract that, eland evolved a much greater distance that they will run away from a human being. So they'll run further away from a human being than they will for a lion, where most other animals will be the opposite. So it's fascinating how all these little evolutionary cogs have played a role over millennia here in Africa and the rest of the world, and how evolution is never truly done. Every day something is evolving, even we're evolving constantly, and it is just a really fascinating thing to behold, the evolution of the world. Now, let me just swing back to give you a view over the marvelous Masai Mara and some impressive skies and sun, and lots of zebra in the foreground. Hi, Liz is wondering, do we find kudu in the more wooded areas of the Mara? Now, strangely enough, Liz, kudu have become extinct in this area, and actually quite recently. It probably would have happened naturally, though. So the Masai Mara is a man-made ecosystem. So it has been chopped and burnt, and that is what's created these open grasslands, this and the Serengeti, for thousands of years. Now, not too far to the south there are kudu, and to the north there are kudu, but this area has just become a little bit too open, a little bit too grassy. So with pressure from human beings and from the other predators, kudu have been a local extinction in the last sort of 50 or 60 years. So there's a perfect point of evolution happening as we speak about it. Now, kudu are not threatened, but this ecosystem just has not been good for them, so they have slowly but surely disappeared from here. Wow, look at that rain. And of course that rain is one of the most important things that creates this magnificent ecosystem. High rainfall, high altitude, and that volcanic ash that laid all over the Mara and the Serengeti, creating a very unique ecosystem with really, really great grazing opportunities for the predator, for the prey species. And where you have a lot of prey, you have a lot of predators. And what I call the soundtrack of the Masai Mara in the distance there, a rufous-naped lark. Donna is wondering what would happen if we're late to the gate. Well, Donna, if we have a reasonable excuse, like we have broken down, or one of us has got stuck, I wonder who that's going to be, well, we can let them know that we are going to be late. And then normally what would happen if you got stranded out there, you would get a hold of an askari who would come with one of our team to come rescue us. But it all depends. The guys here are very reasonable, as long as you're not taking the mickey or pushing limits. They're very, very reasonable. There's a rainbow! See the rainbow, Dave? It's quite a faint one. Oh, there's three rainbows. There we go, you're on them a little bit further to the left. Can you just make them out? Not a little bit to the right? And, well, what a wonderful way to end this sunset safari with rain, well, a very faint rainbow, but we look forward forward to seeing you soon. We're not going to be with you tomorrow. You're going to be back with Djuma. But get prepared for tomorrow night. We're going to be going through an all-nighter, so keep a watch out on Facebook. You never know what might happen. Lion hunts, hyena hunts, leopard hunts. It's all possible on Safari Live. So from all of us here, goodbye and see you tomorrow night.